Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. Today Scarlett is joining me for at least the beginning of this video. Probably won't last too long. But I was trying to decide whether to film the controversial parenting tag or my how I found out I was pregnant at 18 slash experience being pregnant in college video, and I think I'm gonna do the controversial parenting tag today. I might end up filming both of them, but we'll see. I'm kind of nervous, and I don't really know why, because most of these aren't even that controversial, but some of them are. So I'm just gonna be honest, but just a disclaimer, like, not everybody's gonna agree, and parents, we're just doing our best, and every kid is different too, and every situation is different, so I'm not bashing anybody else for their choices. So yeah. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and get right into the questions. The first question is pro-life or pro-choice, which is probably like the most controversial one on here, and at first I wasn't gonna talk about it, but this is actually like something that I'm fairly passionate about, just because I think a lot of people get so caught up in their ideologies that they don't think through things logically. So personally, this might sound weird, but I don't like the phrases pro-life and pro-choice. I think they promote division and exclusivity. It implies that people who are pro-life don't place any value on women having autonomy over what happens to them, and that people who are pro-choice don't place any value on life, which I don't think is the case. In most scenarios, pro-lifers and pro-choicers have a lot more common ground than they might realize, but they're kind of blinded to that common ground because of the labels that are placed on them and are placed by them. Neither side wants to listen to one another because of these labels. So my personal stance on the issue of abortion is, as a Christian, I believe in the intrinsic value of life. I believe that babies are in the womb a life created by God, but I don't think that it's as simple as just saying abortion is evil and it should be illegal. I think that those who march around saying, you're evil, you're killing your baby, stuff like that, I don't think that they're being very effective in preventing women from getting abortions. And I think as a society, we should, and especially as Christians, we should be thinking, okay, what are practical steps that we can take that can lead to women having less abortions in our country? And I think that those steps might include better access and education about birth control, sex education, abstinence, as well as providing options to mothers, young mothers, single mothers, mothers living in poverty who decide to keep their babies. And we need to come alongside those mothers and really support them and walk them through motherhood, because a lot of times the tendency is to care so much about a baby's life when they're in the womb, but then when the baby's born, you're kind of like, oh, you're on your own now. So I think those are some practical ways that we could, prevent abortions. And, I think that we should check our hearts and think about the fact that there are very few people who get abortions that are just like so happy about it. Pretty much no one is just like, I'm so glad I got an abortion. Like, it's traumatic, it's a tragedy, and it's horrible that it's a horrible choice to make, in the sense that it's so hard for a woman to make that choice. It can be such a traumatic experience, and they can live with so much guilt. And the last thing that they need is people marching around saying, God hates you because you killed your baby. That's just not what women need. When they're in that situation, we should be supporting them, loving them, and saying, what can we do to make a difference in these kinds of situations? What can we do so a woman living in poverty doesn't feel like she has to get an abortion? Things like that. So that was kind of long. So we're going to move on to the next question. I hope I explained myself well and did not step on any toes, but it's kind of like, I have so much compassion for a woman that has to make that decision or feels like she has to make that decision, and I can't sit here and judge her because I haven't been in a situation where I have felt like I don't have what I need to provide for my child or something like that. So I think that we should all show more compassion to women who are expecting and trying to make a decision on whether they should keep their child or not. Okay, so number 2, baby wearing, which is like seems so insignificant compared to the last question. But anyways, I don't know why this is controversial. I personally wore Scarlett when she was a newborn. We used the Solly baby wrap, which was so great to have like my hands free, and it was nice, especially when she was a newborn, when we would go out in public, because it kind of keeps her close to me and it keeps people from like being in her face and getting germs on her. But she's 8.5 months old, and I literally wore her in the wrap yesterday because she just didn't want to be set down. So love baby wearing, all for it. Number 3, circumcision. This one is pretty controversial, and I don't have a boy, so I don't have personal experience with this. But just my opinion is that, honestly, I think it should be something that's kept private in your family. I'm not judging anyone who chooses to talk about it, but personally, if or when I have a boy, it's not a decision that I would share with the internet, because I just feel like that is just kind of, I don't know. I feel like my son might be embarrassed about that looking back or something like that, talking about something so private. So yeah, that's my thoughts. Number 4, adoption. I think adoption is wonderful. I really hope I can adopt one day. I think it's just something so special and hard, and I love reading stories of adoptive mothers and things like that, because I think there's just a lot more that goes into it than most people think, but I think it's such a beautiful thing to do. Number 5, baby piercing. This is probably the one that I'm like the most undecided about, because I've literally gone back and forth a million times. I got my ears pierced for my 6th birthday, which was fine. It wasn't traumatic or anything. I asked for it, but at the same time, like, I had really, they would always get infected, which I just got them done at like Claire's, which I didn't know that like piercing guns were bad and everything. And so I've gone back and forth a million times whether I want to get Scarlett's done now so she doesn't remember the pain, or later so she can ask for it, or I don't know, and so that she's not scared. I just can't decide. So I'll keep you updated if I ever make a decision about that. But currently her ears are not pierced, and she's about to be 9 months. Okay, number 6, breast milk versus formula. Personally, I breastfeed. My baby has formula sometimes whenever I don't have time to pump. Thank God for formula, because it saves babies' lives. But I think that breastfeeding can be something really special, and I think everyone should at least give it a try if you can. Just see if you like it. Everybody's different, and you know, some babies do better with breastfeeding and some babies do better with formula, and there's nothing wrong with that. Okay, number 7, the cry it out method versus others. So we used a version of the cry it out method. We used the taking care of babies. I've talked about this in Scarlett's 6-month video. We used her program for sleep training, and I used to be like really against cry it out, but it's not just like leaving your babies to cry and no matter what you don't go pick them up. It's like making sure they feel very secure with like check-ins, but at the same time letting them put themselves to sleep. And it's only good like after a certain age. Like you wouldn't do that with like a newborn, like a month-old baby. We started at 5 months. Some people start earlier or later, but that was a good time for us. And she still does sleep all the way through the night, but she only wakes up like once. And before, she woke up a lot more, so that's good. Number 8, spanking. Obviously, Scarlett's not at the age where I've had to discipline her. And I personally, the physical discipline doesn't really sit right with me, so I don't think that I would spank Scarlett. Number 9, co-sleeping. I think co-sleeping can be really great if done properly. You just have to be really diligent about being safe with it. We co-slept for 5 months until we sleep trained her. She slept in the DockATot, next to me, and we had a king size bed, and she would be swaddled in the DockATot, and it worked great because I could just pull her over to me to breastfeed and put her back in the DockATot. And when she started rolling is whenever I decided to transition her out of the swaddle, out of the DockATot into her own crib. So we did that at 5 months, which she did roll before that, but she didn't really do it consistently. So yeah. Number 10, home versus public versus private versus charter schooling. So this one I think is very dependent, number one, on the child, number two, on the area where you live. If we still live here where we live right now, when Scarlett goes to kindergarten, I will probably put her in public school because I went to public school here for elementary school. The schools in the area are really great, but it just depends on where we live. I can see myself homeschooling her for a time, but probably not a long period of time. Possibly for junior high, just because I think those are really hard years in school, like 7th and 8th grade. But I wouldn't like make her be homeschooled if she didn't want to be. So if it was something she would be interested in, I might consider that when she's older. Number 11, vaccinations. Yes, we vaccinate. Thank God for vaccinations. Number 12, medicating children. Yes, thank God for medications. Definitely not just like giving your baby a bunch of medicine as soon as she gets a stuffy nose, but and you know, I can be crunchy sometimes. Like we use essential oils, but like if my baby has a fever, I'm not just going to like put a drop of lavender on her and call it a day. Like I'll give her Tylenol, give her ibuprofen, take her to the doctor, whatever she needs. And yeah, that's that. Number 13, cloth versus disposable diapers. We use disposable diapers, but I would love to use cloth diapers maybe one day if I ever have another baby. I follow, I'll link her Instagram below. Joan Calzone is her Instagram name, and she has the sweetest babies, Maeve and Vera, and she used cloth diapers, or she is using cloth diapering with Vera, and I think it's so cute, the little like diaper covers and stuff. And so yeah, maybe one day, but it didn't happen this time. Number 14, store-bought baby food versus homemade. We do both consistently. We buy her pouches and puffs, especially when we're traveling, but we give her some at home too. But also my mom loves to make homemade applesauce and like carrots for Scarlett, and she loves it too. And we give Scarlett some table food now as well. So that is the last question. I really hope y'all enjoyed this video. Feel free to leave your own answers in the comments below. Or if you have any questions, or if I didn't like explain something well enough, I'm really sorry. I tried to get my thoughts out in like the most clear way possible, but sometimes I kind of struggle with it. But it's fine. Okay, so the next video I'm going to be doing is my 18 and pregnant story, how I found out I was pregnant at 18 / what it was like being pregnant in college. So stay tuned for that video. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave a comment below, and I'll see y'all in my next video. Bye!